Good day, YouTube. My name's Colin. Thanks for tuning in. Today, I'm going to go over some advice from Dave Ramsey that I do not think you should follow. That's today's video on financial success. Okay, this should be fun. Now, before I get into this, I just want to put this out there because I know a lot of you probably watch Dave Ramsey. And if you tune into the program he has, I listen to it periodically. I think it's kind of fun, and I think he does help a lot of people, and he provides a great service. So this is not some sort of thing to bash on him, or if you're watching this video, I'm guessing you probably know who he is. But he's a very famous guy who talks about personal finance on a radio show, and for the most part, he gives out great advice. And I know he's helped a lot of people get out of debt and do a lot of great things. So I got a lot of respect for him, and I think that he does a lot of great things. But with all that being said, periodically I'll hear some things as I'm listening to the program, and I'll just say, it'll just hit me like, what? And I can't really explain it, but it hits me, and it's like, why would you tell people that? That's not right at all. And so I just wanted, just kind of for fun and just kind of to help get a discussion out there, I just wanted to provide my viewpoint on a few pieces of advice that I happen to disagree with that he gives people. Okay? So don't take this as some sort of an attack on the guy. I think he's a great guy. I think he helps a lot of people, and I'm glad he does what he does, and he gets a lot of fulfillment out of that, and a lot of people's lives are better because of him. Okay, so without further ado, the first thing that I'm going to talk about is the way that he has people pay off debt. He always tells people to pay off your smallest debts first. And the reason he recommends that is because when you pay off your smallest debts first, you'll pay them off the quickest. But the problem is that your smallest debts are not always going to be your most expensive debts. I don't understand why you wouldn't pay off your ones with the highest interest rates first. If you can, and if you're disciplined, you're going to end up saving yourself so much money. You know, if you only, like, you may have a car loan. I don't even know what car loans go for, but maybe you have a 5% loan that's smaller than your credit card debt of 25%. Why would you can sit down and do the math and start to realize it's going to be expensive to hold off paying that big expensive debt just because it's larger. Mathematically, it just is going to make more sense to pay off your more expensive ones first. It's going to save you so much money. And if you're committing yourself to paying off debt, why not do it in the most efficient way? You know, you're making the great decision to get your personal finances in line. Why not give yourself a little bit more help and make your money go a little bit further by paying off debt that is hurting you the most? Only makes sense to me. Now, I think the reason he does it is because he thinks that there's a psychological advantage when you start to see debts get paid off, and it gives you more encouragement. And maybe if you need that to stay committed, if that's something that you really need it, and it's the only way you're going to be encouraged to keep staying committed to paying off debt, then okay. But if you don't need that, and if you can stay positive and stay motivated to keep paying off your debt without seeing the small ones go before the big ones, and maybe waiting a little longer to get the big one paid off and then paying off the small ones quicker, you're going to just save yourself a lot of money. So if you can do it, pay off the most expensive ones first. For crying out loud, it's just going to be the cheapest and the way that makes the most sense to pay off debt if you have multiple debts. All right, that's number one. Number two, Dave tells people that they should not use credit cards for anything. Before we get too into this, we're not talking about holding a balance on a credit card. I don't think if anybody in personal finance would recommend you to hold a balance on a credit card for any reason, don't listen to them, because that's always going to be a terrible idea. Those are some of the most expensive debts out there. I don't believe in having any debt personally. Some people need to have some debt to, on a mortgage and that type of thing. That's okay. But never have any credit card debt. We're not talking about that. We're talking about using a credit card and paying it off every month. Now, Dave tells people never do that. Buy everything with cash or a check card or whatever. And I don't really understand why, if you can pay with a credit card, it costs the same amount of money and you can get a lot of perks from a credit card. Okay? You can collect a lot of miles, which you can use to travel. I myself use a credit card to pay for day-to-day purchases. I pay it off every month. And I've traveled, I've gotten a lot of free flights and that types of things with my credit card, and it doesn't cost me anything because I pay it off every month. Now I know what Dave has said is that it'll inhibit your behavior because you'll feel a little bit more of an emotional response if you pay for something with cash and you actually physically see yourself pull out green money and set it down versus when you pull out a piece of plastic and set it down. You know, say you're out to dinner and you put that in there and it's just swiped, it's just numbers. I don't know. I mean, to me, I still think of it the same. And maybe that's just because I'm used to it, or we're moving into more of a digital age where our minds don't process the same way. I'm not really sure, but if you really think it's going to influence your spending habits by using cash, because cash is more of a hassle. If you're going to go purchase something that costs $19 and 57 cents, and you pull out a 20 and you got to get all this change back and you got to put it in your pocket or do whatever with it, and it's maybe going to fall out in a couch cushion when you sit down. It's just kind of a pain. And maybe if that extra pain helps you spend less, and that's a tool that you use to spend less money, I guess if it helps you, great. But I think for most of us, I don't need that hassle to know not to spend money. And I can physically think about the money I'm spending, and I think be just as aware. You just have to it's with anything else. You just have to be aware and make yourself aware of your purchases. And at the end of the month, you can look at those and see what you're spending your money on just the same, whether you spend it with, whether the method you use is cash or credit. It all comes out the same. So why not get some nice perks? That's what I do. All right. Now, the last thing, this is probably the next thing I want to talk about is the biggest thing that kind of really inspired me to do this movie, because I heard Dave give a piece of advice that I flat out thought was terrible advice. And it's not often that I hear this. I think he gives a lot of great advice, but this was the worst, by far, the worst piece of advice. And that is, he tells people that they should be investing in actively traded, I'm sorry, I don't want me to laugh, but he tells people they should be investing in active mutual funds instead of ETFs or index funds. And that's just crazy. That is not backed up by research. That's not backed up by math. Most actively traded mutual funds are not going to beat the market. And the ones that beat the market don't do it consistently. That's the short of it. If you want to do your own research, I would encourage you to do it. Please look into it, Google it. In fact, why don't you go ahead and Google the Buffett Challenge, which was a 10-year challenge. I talked about it on another one of my videos about the financial industry. I'll put a link to that video at the end of this video, just in case you want to look at it and get some more information on it. But essentially, Warren Buffett put out a real challenge to hedge fund managers, and he said, look, he put out this 10-year challenge to see if they could, in a long-term period, we're talking about a decade, beat a typical S&P 500 index fund, and not a single one of them that accepted the challenge could do it. And a lot of them didn't even accept the challenge, which should speak volumes. So if you're educated and you do your research, it's not really even debatable. There's just too much evidence out there that supports the fact that an ETF or an index fund is always going to beat a mutual fund. Don't buy mutual funds, buy ETFs. So those are my three things. Like I said, not to trash the guy. I think he does a lot of great things. I know I said that before, but I'll say it again. But hope you enjoyed this video. Just kind of a little fun video, and hopefully it was a little bit educational at the same time. So if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and click a like. Otherwise, if you enjoyed some of my other videos, you can check those out. Feel free to click the subscribe button. We'll put it right here. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Financial Success.